Some good news for Pakistan. You don't hear that every day. Saudi Arabia is building an oil refinery in the country, specifically in the province of Balochistan. The agreement was signed on Thursday. A total of 5 parties are involved, 4 state-owned Pakistani firms and the Saudi oil giant Aramco. How much money are we talking about? Around $10 billion. The Pakistani firms will contribute 40 to 45% of the initial money. Aramco will give the rest. The plan is to build the refinery here in the town of Gwadar. It's also where China is building a huge port. Now, why is this project important for Pakistan? Well, at this point, any project is important for Pakistan. Their economy is that bad. But beyond that, a couple of reasons. This is the first new refinery to be built in Pakistan in a decade. So 10 years, 0 refineries. In the 3 decades before that, they built 2. Long story short, Pakistan's output is not impressive. Their maximum capacity is around 20 million tons. Their actual output is just 11 million tons. And clearly that's not enough. Pakistan's domestic oil consumption is expected to reach 33 million tons next year. They produce just 1/3 of that. So this new refinery is not an additional boost, it's more of a necessity. But what's in it for Saudi Arabia? Why are they doing this? They were not 100% convinced by Pakistan's pitch, which is why this project was stalled for a long time. They thought it was too risky. So what explains the U-turn? 2 major reasons. One, Pakistan has diluted the risk. Like I said, their state-owned companies will pump in a lot of money, around 40 to 45% of it. Riyadh will only have to give the rest, which is still a lot, but it's a lesser risk. So their exposure is limited if things go south. Reason number 2, Pakistan sweetened the deal. They have given a 20-year tax holiday for the refinery, no custom duties, no surcharges, no sales taxes. After all that help, Saudi Arabia has agreed to build this. But in Pakistan, signing a deal is never enough. Neither is building the project. Security is the biggest issue in Pakistan, and this project is coming up in Balochistan of all places. It's a restive province in the southwestern part of the country. It's notorious for crackdowns. In May this year, a military installation was attacked by insurgents. At least 13 people were killed, including soldiers. Even foreign projects are not off limits. In fact, China is one of their big targets. Balochistan is a key part of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC. But the locals are pushing back. In 2021, a bus carrying Chinese workers was attacked. 9 of them died. The same year, there was a suicide attack on a luxury hotel in Quetta, the capital of Balochistan. And guess who was staying in that hotel? The Chinese ambassador. Now, if you ask the people of Balochistan, they have the same complaint. The money is coming, but it's not coming to them. And there are no jobs. The work is being done by Chinese workers and engineers. So here's the big question. Could Saudi projects also come under attack in Balochistan? It's certainly a possibility. Even Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif knows this. He was in Gwadar on Thursday. He called for protecting foreign projects in Balochistan. Listen to what he said.
China, Saudi Arabia, Qatar and the UAE are helping us without any condition. So it's our duty to safeguard their projects and investments.
A lot depends on the army, really. You see, Pakistan's civilian government does not run Balochistan. The army does, as they do the rest of the country. So without their blessing, you cannot be safe. In January this year, Army Chief Asim Munir had traveled to Saudi Arabia. I guess the talks went well. The Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif, was also supposed to go in April, but his trip was cancelled. It made no difference in the end. The people who mattered had taken the call. And this would never happen anywhere else. The government is stepping down on the 12th of August. That's just 2 weeks away. In most democracies, this is a sitting duck period, but not in Pakistan. Their government just signed a deal for the country's biggest refinery. You can understand the urgency in Islamabad. But why is Riyadh playing along? We keep coming back to that question. They have a long history of supporting Pakistan, you see. The Saudis have bailed out Islamabad many times. Most recently, this month, Saudi Arabia gave assistance worth $2 billion to Pakistan. The reason is quite simple. Pakistan's military is very close to Saudi Arabia. Army Chief Asim Munir visited the country in January, like I said. It was his first foreign trip after taking office. His predecessor did the same. That's Qamar Javed Bajwa. He too visited Saudi Arabia first after taking office. Riyadh gave him a medal before he retired. This relationship is very transactional. The Saudis keep bailing out Pakistan. In return, the army gives them military muscle. Since the 1970s, Pakistan has trained Saudi soldiers and pilots. Plus, Pakistan is the only Muslim country with nuclear weapons, and even today, that counts for something. But don't think this relationship is all rosy. Saudi Arabia has recently become ambivalent. In 2020, they refused to take deferred payments for oil. Riyadh said, pay up now. The same year, they asked Islamabad to repay loans worth $1 billion. Riyadh said, no more delays, you have to pay us now. Even this year, the kingdom was half-hearted. They did give $2 billion, but only after the International Monetary Fund agreed to bail Pakistan out. So the Saudi tap is not perennial. The flow has already lost momentum. If this Gwadar refinery fails, it could slow to a trickle or even shut. Now let's talk about North Korea. The Hermit Kingdom has been awash in fanfare. They're celebrating the 70th anniversary of the Korean War armistice. Of course, Pyongyang spins it a little differently. They call it Victory Day, and they're celebrating this make-believe victory with make-believe jets, apparently. The country has released a propaganda video which looks like a mix of Top Gun and Toy Story. And we are not making this up. But that is not all, of course. A grand military parade is also being held in Pyongyang. They've called Russian and Chinese officials to watch the festivities. Russia's defense minister is a guest of honor. He was seen standing next to North Korea's Kim Jong-un during the parade. And what were they looking at? The banned missiles from North Korea's sanctioned missile development program. Here's a report.
If there's one thing all authoritarians seem to like, it's a grand military parade. A chance to pat themselves on the back, looking at all the money spent on keeping their regime secure. No one quite epitomizes this as much as North Korea. The Kim family has spent decades lording over the country, and they treat themselves to a grand parade regularly to mark their control. This year is no different. On the 70th anniversary of the Korean War armistice, missiles were once again rolling through Pyongyang's streets. Its skies were abuzz again with fireworks and combat drones. These drones were also rolled out during Pyongyang's parade. A supposedly nuclear-capable underwater attack craft was also showcased. And the North Korean people were literally jumping up and down in apparent excitement. At the same time, the country released this propaganda video of its Air Force. This seems like a uniquely North Korean practice. The video was shot as though it was inspired by the Top Gun movies. Of course, the initial part, which shows the pilots flying toy jets, was an interesting choice. It doesn't really seem like the best way to showcase one's Air Force superiority, but maybe there's some deep, extremely well-hidden purpose behind the toy plane shots. Anyway, eventually the video does go on to highlight the Hermit Kingdom's planes and pilots. Of course, the pilot rubbing his face gently on the flag looks a bit strange. But it's peak Pyongyang propaganda. And overseeing all this propaganda, pomp and pageantry is Kim Jong-un, the so-called supreme leader of North Korea. He was seen waving at his energetic subjects, saluting the soldiers who marched past his viewing platform, and clapping at the military equipment being rolled out in front of him. On his right side was Sergei Shoigu, Russia's defense minister, the guest of honor at this parade. He played the part well, clapping and saluting along with Kim and occasionally engaging in what looked like serious discussions. On the North Korean despot's other side was another high-profile guest, Chinese Communist Party Politburo member Lee Hongzhong. Lee isn't exactly the most high-profile of Chinese officials, but the 66-year-old is still part of China's top governing bodies, so his presence can be seen as an endorsement by Beijing. Kim had Russia on his right and China on his left, which is of course highly symbolic. Shoigu and Lee have been in Pyongyang for a few days now, making public appearances with Kim and being shown North Korean weapons up close. Shoigu also met his North Korean counterpart for formal talks.
Democratic People's Republic of Korea is an important partner of Russia. We have common borders and a rich history of cooperation.
He called Pyongyang an important partner, and Pyongyang seems to have gone out of its way to make their partner welcome. Look at these pictures from meetings between Kim and Shoigu. You see images of Russian President Vladimir Putin watching over them. It seems to be a somewhat over-the-top gesture of hospitality, a tribute to the enduring partnership of the Red Triad. But now it seems China and Russia are openly becoming North Korea's partners in crime as well. We say this because of the weapons that the Russian and Chinese delegations have been viewing for the past few days. There didn't seem to be any rebuke of North Korea's ballistic missiles. We're talking about the intercontinental ballistic missiles like the Hwasong 17 and 18. Missiles which are believed to be capable of striking every inch of American soil. Yes, these missiles being paraded about can allegedly hit parts of the US even 12,500 kilometers away. And even if the range is an exaggeration by North Korea, the missiles are considered nuclear capable. So naturally, they are banned. They've been banned under UN Security Council resolutions, meaning, as members of the Security Council, Russia and China had also declared these missiles illegal. Yet the delegations were happy enough to clap along with Kim as the missiles were being displayed. It seems Moscow and Beijing have forgotten their earlier objections. And why wouldn't they? Over the past year, the world seems to have moved backwards. A war in Europe, the threat of nuclear destruction, battle lines from the Cold War era re-emerging. So it's easy to see why Moscow and Beijing would prop up their old North Korean allies again. What this likely means is that Kim Jong-un will be emboldened, redouble his efforts to produce sanctioned weapons with no fear of reprisal. And that's not good news for the rest of the world.
We have another story from China tonight on how it plans to dominate the high seas. China is acquiring new bases, and these are far beyond Chinese borders. Some new satellite pictures have emerged. They show that Beijing could be getting a new base overseas. And where is it? In Cambodia. Let me show you the pictures. This is the Ream Naval Base. A new pier is coming up here. Experts say it is almost complete now, and several reports say that China is secretly building this facility. The US believes so too. But both China and Cambodia have rubbished these reports. And yet the world is not buying their version. I'll tell you why. Let's go back to that picture. The new pier at the Ream Naval Base is strikingly similar to another facility, China's naval base in Djibouti. We have a satellite image of that base too. Let's put both the pictures side by side. Now look closely. Both the piers are similar, same size, same design, and both piers are long enough to berth warships, even aircraft carriers. China built the base in Djibouti, so it's quite possible that it took the same design to Cambodia and built another pier to serve the PLA there. Last year, China's foreign ministry faced some questions about this. They were asked about the base in Cambodia and if Beijing was upgrading it. China was cagey in its response.
China and Cambodia are comprehensive strategic partners, and the cooperation between the two countries in various fields is open, transparent, reasonable and legitimate. The Chinese-aided project to upgrade the Cambodian naval base is a normal aid activity to Cambodia.
It is normal aid activity, they said. But anything that involves a military base cannot be a normal affair. It is an investment. It's a strategic maneuver. And in China's case, part of a well-thought-out plan. The PLA is chasing supremacy on the high seas. Djibouti was the first step. Cambodia could be the second, but definitely not the last. Beijing won't stop at two bases. They have ambitious plans. They want naval bases across the globe, and they began work on it more than 2 decades ago. In the last 20 years, China has financed some 123 seaport projects, 123 projects. They will be built at 78 ports in at least 46 countries. And how much money has China poured into this? Around $30 billion. Are all of these ports military ports? Well, China does not use that label. It says these are civilian ports, commercial projects that enable trade. That's how they put it. But that doesn't mean they cannot be used for military purposes. because Chinese law enables it. It enables dual use of such facilities, meaning if the Chinese Navy needs a port, it can use it. A warship could easily make a stopover at any port that is owned or operated by a Chinese firm. Even if it is a civilian facility, the Navy has the right to use it. And these ports that China is financing could easily fulfill some key requirements like refueling and replenishment of supplies like food and water. In fact, the Chinese Navy is already making use of these ports. And where are they located? Let's pull up the map for you again. Chinese-funded ports are everywhere, from Latin America to Africa, even near Europe, South Asia, and East Asia. So far, China has committed to building projects at 78 ports. Out of these, 49 projects are either approved, under construction, or already completed. And 8 of these ports are special. I'll tell you why I say this. It's because they're well equipped. They are the best suited for the PLA to have a base in the future. And which bases are these? I have a list again. The Hambantota port in Sri Lanka, the Bata port in Equatorial Guinea, the Gwadar port in Pakistan, Kribi in Cameroon, the Reem base in Cambodia, Luganville in Vanuatu, Nakala in Mozambique, and Nouakchott in Mauritania. Experts say these are the likely candidates. This is a short list for potential Chinese naval bases. Look closely and you'll notice that 2 of them are close to the Indian borders, Gwadar in Pakistan and Hambantota in Sri Lanka. Now the question to why China is building so many bases. Why do they need them? For 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is Taiwan. China wants a navy that is powerful enough to carry out a future invasion. The bases can support a potential operation like this. Reason number 2 is global domination, to challenge powers like the US. China needs facilities to project military power in every potential theater of conflict. Right now, only the US has this capability. Its forces can deploy anywhere in the world within hours. China wants to match that. Hence the plan to build more bases in remote areas. And you can imagine the response of the West. They will try to one-up. So this is now a race, and it can only have one outcome: higher risk of an armed conflict. And finally, the latest trend / talking point on social media, it's called the lazy girl, and it's the opposite of what we saw a decade back. The 2010s were the decade of the girl boss. The overambitious woman, her goal was to lean in, to do more at work and then some. But now we're in the era of anti-work, the great resignation. Studies say 6 in 10 workers apparently don't give everything they've got anymore. And the result is this: the girl boss has bid us goodbye. Work life has a new reigning queen. And the so-called lazy girls are taking over social media. They're chasing what's called a lazy girl job. What is this all about? Our next report tells you.
Lazy girl job. It sounds a bit ridiculous. But before you jump to conclusions, listen to this. What is a lazy girl job? It's low-stress work, usually remote. Hours fall within a 9-to-5 schedule, and the pay is good. It allows for financial freedom. Sounds like the perfect package to many. And that explains why it has a trending hashtag on social media, with tens of millions of views. Seems like women want to be lazy girls in a lazy world. And they're going online, then screaming from metaphorical mountaintops about such jobs. Like in this video. Here's what we noticed. All lazy girl jobs aren't the same. They tick different boxes for different people. But every lazy girl job meets general criteria. For starters, it's a healthy work environment. There's a sense of safety. No long, gruesome shifts or commutes. Secondly, it's either completely remote or hybrid-friendly. And thirdly, it pays well. Meaning, people earn a comfortable salary. All in all, with a lazy girl job, workers get to prioritize themselves. Now, many are jumping on this trend, embarking on job search journeys, in the search of the perfect lazy job. But there are many who disagree. After all, in most societies, our work is our worth. And who would want to be lazy? The term itself has a negative connotation. It's seen as the wrong attitude for building a meaningful career. Kind of like when Kim Kardashian said this and became a meme. But experts say something contrary. In reality, there's nothing lazy about a lazy girl job. It's about showing up to work, doing your best, doing what you're being paid for, and then focusing on your personal life. Or, as the Gen Z put it, getting a life. Lazy girl jobs only seem lazy when compared to traditional workplace expectations, where people must move fast and break things, be the first in and last out. And look at what that's done to the workforce. Burnout and sickness have become a homogeneous part of most work lives. According to a Microsoft study, nearly 50% of employees are burnt out. And that's average worldwide data. Some countries have it worse than others. In Asian countries like South Korea and China, the 996 is vastly common. It's where people work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. Death by overwork is a common phenomenon across South Korea and Japan. An average South Korean works for over 1,900 hours a year. That's 200 more than the OECD average. In neighboring Japan, work averages at around 1,600 hours. What about India? According to the International Labour Organization, it has the fifth longest working hours in the world. A study says that the ideal work week has 39 hours. An average worker in India works 48 hours a week. If that limit is exceeded, a person's mental health begins to deteriorate, meaning an average Indian worker's mental health is hampered every week. How are other countries faring? An average worker in the UK works 36 hours a week. Same for Israel, and 37 hours a week in the US. It's lower than the 39-hour limit, but only marginally. The situation is not that bad everywhere, of course. Some Swiss and Scandinavian cities like Oslo, Bern, Helsinki have the best work-life balance, but such instances are a rarity. Across the world, people enter the workforce with high hopes. They want a swanky job, a corner office, and off-site meetings in the Bahamas. Instead, what do they get? Constant backache, meetings that could have been emails, and migraines, sometimes in the form of walking, talking micromanagers. And that, if you're lucky. Many workers are ground to the bone. Working cultures treat people as replaceable machine parts who constantly over-deliver at the cost of their own well-being and personal life. And in such times, the lazy girl job is a beacon of hope. If not that, it's at least a learning opportunity. That's the goal of this story. We don't demand that you up and leave your job or shape your career around a TikTok trend. We only urge that you re-evaluate your work. Ask, how much is enough? And if that doesn't crack it, try embodying Beyoncé and chant, release your job, release the time.
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story, starting with Niger, a country in West Africa where supporters of a coup set fire to the headquarters of the ruling party. A runaway bull wreaked havoc in the streets of Peru. 5 people were injured. The video of a giant Hummer is going viral. It is 3 times bigger than a regular SUV. This car has been dubbed Humzilla, and reportedly it belongs to the royal family of the UAE. And finally, taking you back in history to the year 1914, on July 28, the First World War began after Austria-Hungary declared a war on Serbia. Following this, more than 30 nations declared war between 1914 and 1918. It led to unprecedented destruction and loss of human life. We may be leaving you on a grim note, but we hope your weekend is happier. Thank you for watching. We'll see you on Monday.
The enemy was undoubtedly attacking on the... The enemy was undoubtedly...
anda viejo, 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 mete mano, viejo.